by the blues?
Like most guys my age, I think I got it from the white guys like Eric Clapton and Peter Green and Johnny Winter and people like that. Because like when I was growing up, you didn't get to hear the real thing. But what that certainly did was sort of put you on the right track of hearing the original stuff, which I sort of hooked onto as quickly as I could get a hold of it, really. So yeah, it was the white guys first. But I don't think I'm Robinson Crusoe in that.
Not at all, especially not here.
No.
Do you remember your first guitar?
Yeah, I do. My mum bought it for me for my birthday. I got it from a guy at school. It was a crappy one, but most people's are, I suppose. It was I think it was called a Commodore Riviera. It was electric, and I was one of those guys plug it into the wall. Then I realised you had to get a bunch of other stuff as well.
When did you start to get serious about the guitar?
Very quickly. I mean, even then, I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. The addiction happens to you very quickly. It's almost like heroin in a way. It doesn't take very long to get hold. And as soon as I started being able to play one or two things, you sort of get hungry to learn as much as you can, and hopefully keep learning.
Were you pretty determined right from the start to develop your own style of playing?
I don't think you care when you're young. I think that the first thing you want to do is play like your heroes, and certainly for the first few years, I don't think it enters into it. I think you want to get all those licks off that you hear on the records, and you want to get them right, especially with blues, because that's what it all is. It's all about sort of mastering something. It's about mastering a feel and a way of doing things. And then what you start doing then, I think, is mixing things up until they just become this big melting pot. And I think that's what happens to most people.
Was it always going to be blues for you? That was your one and only musical love?
No, not at all. I mean, certainly with guitar playing, blues was my first love, and it's been a constant through all my life. But I've always been a bit of a magpie music. I'll take it from anywhere. I mean, the only thing I don't like is fake music. I don't like music that's manufactured or made for a reason other than to make music, which it's obviously what that kind of music is. It's all over the place. So as long as music's real and it's made with a lot of heart, I'll give it a go. I might not want to play it, but I'll certainly listen to it.
Tell us a little bit about your band background in the years leading up to the Bondi Cigars.
Well, I started off being like real gung-ho, wanting to be famous, and like when you're sort of between 18 and 25, I was just trying all kinds of things, playing in all kinds of bands, and trying to write songs and trying to get the recording deal and getting close and getting all that kind of stuff. And then I sort of dropped the ball a bit and lost interest in it because I just got shafted so many times, and I went off and just got a day job. I worked in a bank for about 9 years as a I started off as a messenger boy, just running around town, which I loved because I spent most of my time in shops. and then I started playing. I got back into the blues scene again, which I'd sort of ignored for a few years, just by going and seeing bands like the 4-Day Riders and the Hippos, who were kind of friends of mine anyway. And I just got back into it because everybody was having so much fun. And I hadn't had funny music for a long time, so that's really what got me into it again. And then just through that was meeting Al Britton, the bass player, and sort of getting something started with him.
I believe that the band first formed as a side project. Was there a particular point in time when it became the main concern for you all?
Yeah, when the other guys' bands broke up. I wasn't really doing anything except playing in this thing that we used to do every Thursday night, which I don't think we had a name to start off with. We just played in the front bar at the Bridge Hotel in Balmain, there in Sydney, and we just played, mainly blues, but we'd play anything anybody asked us to play. And then a couple of months after that, Les and Ace Follington, who was a drummer at the time, decided to leave the Hippos, and Al was looking for something a bit more serious, and we just realised that we had a perfect little unit as we were, so we didn't have to sort of mess with it too much. It was working as it was, so we just and it was really weird because we got a record deal with the ABC really quickly within about a month, and I can't for the life of me think why they gave us one, because we didn't have. I mean, we had a couple of original songs, but we just had this demo that we recorded for a radio show called Stormy Monday up here in Sydney, and it was pretty rough, but it must have had something, I suppose, because they gave us a deal.
Now, you also did spend some time in the 4-Day Riders, didn't you?
I was never an official member, but I was always the guy they dragged in when somebody went on holiday.
Yeah.
The first long period I had with them was when Andrew Reid, who was the guitarist at the time, went off to play with Don Walker, and that was about 6 weeks. And that was great. I mean, playing with those guys I still do it occasionally. It's still really enjoyable because Ron King and Jeff King are two of my favourite musicians. So it's great because they're very authentic, and they don't really do much other than what they do, and you're sort of forced into that boundary, and it really makes you sort of pick your feet up a little bit.
Yeah. Are they still going around up there? Because I think I heard word recently they were calling it a day.
No, I don't think they'll call it a day. They just don't get a lot of work because they don't really go out pushing for it. Most of them have other jobs and other things they do, but certainly when they play, a lot of people come and see them. So I don't think they'll ever break up unless one of them, turns his toes up.
Now, the Bondi Cigars has stayed pretty true to its love of blues since day one. Has there been any record company pressure over the years to take a more mainstream line? No,
actually, that did happen a little bit. Although we classify ourselves as being blues based, we like I said, we'll do anything as long as it doesn't go too far from our brief, which is kind of tough music that's got a good funky in the broadest sense, like danceable and having a good backbeat, and we'll stick to that. But I remember somebody after we put our first album out at the ABC telling us we should get a horn section in and try and sound more like Robert Cray, who was really big at the time.
Yeah.
And we just went, oh no thanks. It just wasn't us at all, and we sort of resented being, especially after they'd sort of signed us up for what we were in the first place.
Yeah.
So we didn't last with them very long. We moved on. No, we couldn't put up with it. We're too long in the tooth now to be told what to do, really, I think.
So that temptation to go down that path has never really been a priority?
No, I think if people in record companies knew that much about music, they'd be doing it themselves. rather than being guys in record companies. They should let the talent get on with making the music, I think.
With Festival, and it's unusual in this country for a major label to have a blues band on its books. How's the relationship with them been?
It's been okay. We just finished a live album that we're not putting out through them. We're putting out. We've always really dealt more with Warren Fahey, who sort of was the head of Larrikin, and he sort of moved on and started his own label called Rouseabout, and it's only quite new. So we've actually just carried on with him. Festival were great as distributors, really. We always supplied them with the finished product anyway. We never sort of got much in the way of sort of support, or I don't know if I should be saying this, but really it was more of a sort of a lease deal with them anyway, from album to album, which is the way we always wanted it. We didn't ever want to be tied down to 4 or 5 albums and getting into hock up to our necks and all that stuff.
It's almost the best of both worlds there, isn't it? You've got the security of a label, but without the pressure of them hanging over you, telling you what to do. Yeah,
well, as I said, we couldn't really put up with that. That really, their big advantage was that they could get our records to all the really crazy places that we go and play in, and that's going to carry on with Warren's label anyway. So it's becoming less and less of a hassle now anyway, because the way the world's shrinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you specialise in a non-commercial style of music, but you've managed to survive over a decade, so there's a fan base there that's obviously very loyal. That must be extremely encouraging.
Yeah, it is. It's what keeps us going, certainly, if we're relying on it. And the thing that keeps us going is the fan base, and plus, community radio stations, the ABC. Just the support group is thinly spread, but if it wasn't there, we'd be dead. We wouldn't be able to survive. But certainly the people who it's because they discover us for themselves, I think. Rather than have us forced down their throat by some radio station, or big radio station, I mean, or seen us on TV and stuff like that, where it's almost like you get told this is the new hippest thing.
Yeah.
And then you have to sort of like it because they tell you that it's good.
That's
Whereas
it.
With us, they discover it through other means,
And it creates a much closer relationship between audience and band too, I guess.
It does. We never separate ourselves from our audience anyway. It's a lot of them have kind of grown up with us. They started coming seeing us when they're 18, and now they're sort of married with kids. I mean, we've only been together like 11 years, but that much can happen in that space of time.
Now, you had a little bit of a name change there in the 90s, using your name up front with the Cigars. What was the story behind that?
Well, it was quite simple. When Les Karski left the band, he was like a big feature of the band, and we didn't really know whether we should call the. We just kept on going. We just got another couple of guys in, but it was really different because we had an organ player, and the music sort of took a bit of a turn towards a slightly more laid-back, jazzy kind of thing, and we didn't know whether we should just use the Bondi Cigars name. In retrospect, we probably shouldn't have even kept that part of the name. We should have just called it something else, but we were under a bit of pressure there to keep some kind of connection going from the other band.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it didn't last long. We just after that we just got another guitar player in, and then we sort of cleared it with Les that we could use the name, and we just carried on again, because we still kept the same people coming to see us anyway, so nothing changed that much.
Now, the live scene up there in Sydney, what changes, obvious changes, have you noticed in the decade or so that you've been playing?
Well, the scene that we sort of came up in, which was not a huge scene, but it was about sort of 10 or 11 venues all around town that were regularly putting on blues acts, has kind of died. And we don't play in Sydney as a city that much. Partly, I mean, we could, but partly because we treat Sydney like any other place that we go and do once or twice a year, like every other place we go to, and because we don't like to be too overexposed. But I think if we relied on Sydney for our income as musicians, we'd be dead. We'd be dead in the water. There's just nothing really. Melbourne's much better as far as having a lot of venues to play at is concerned.
It is, but sadly we've been losing a few over the last few months, which is a shame.
It's going to take you a while to catch up with Sydney, though.
You don't seem to venture down here as much as the fans down here would like.
No, we try and do it twice a year, but Victoria as a state has proved our toughest nut to crack. And certain towns we can go and get a good crowd, but overall, it's very hard for us to get a tour set up because we don't have our profile isn't as good there as it should be, and it's because we kind of left it alone. Like when we first started in the first 2 years, we were down there all the time and doing quite well and picking things up. Then we sort of dropped the ball and didn't come down for a few years. So now we're just trying to get it all up and running again. So we were down there just recently, but it's going to take a few more visits, I think. Like in Melbourne itself, we can pull a pretty decent crowd.
Oh yeah.
Some of the other towns, it's a bit difficult. And that's what we have to do. We can't just come down and do Melbourne. We have to do a run just to make it look like viable for us.
I bet your songwriting, are you a lot more confident songwriter today than in earlier days?
Yeah, well, I mean, on that first Bondi Cigars album, those songs I wrote there, I never knew that they would even have an audience. They were just a few songs I wrote, just so that we could have a few songs to play that weren't like everybody else's, because what everybody else was doing at the time was sort of that Stevie Ray Vaughan type thing, you know, and we never really went down that path, really, and that was partly because we started stockpiling up original songs, so we never had to sort of rely on other people's stuff too much. And that once that album did quite well, that did give me the confidence to push more songs through. And until the last time we did Mercy was totally original. We always used to put a couple of covers on, like every CD before that, but we've ditched that idea now. So, yeah, well, as long as the best feeling in the world is to play a gig and have a whole bunch of people out the front singing your songs back at you.
Yeah. So say next studio release, you're certainly looking at a predominantly original material as well. Yeah,
unless we find a cover that we can do something with. We certainly won't do a cover unless we can really sort of chop and change it a bit. But I think the way it's looking now, we probably won't need to. We're about we need maybe 2 or 3 more songs to go before we're ready to go into the studio again. And we're just trying a few things out on the road as well. So we're in no hurry. As I said, we just got this live one coming out, so that'll tide it over for a little while.
So you think it's pretty important to road test new material?
Yeah, we've always done it. I mean, the only things that we didn't road test on the Mercy CD were a couple of acoustic tracks that we just went set up live to do, but all the rest of them got a very good airing before we recorded them. Certainly for our kind of band, it's almost crucial, because what we're going for with our CDs is very much a live kind of sound anyway. So it's important that they work in that context.
Well, I guess it's the only way to try and recapture that live feel is to practice the song as much as possible. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to get a weird reaction from people with new songs, because first of all, the band's not that confident in playing them, plus they don't know them. So it can throw you when the reaction's not as good as you'd expect. But you just push on through until you start playing them with a bit more force, and then you can sort of get them over. You seem to be a band that does thrive on live performance. Is there anything else you do in the studio to try and recapture that feel?
We never did until the last one, until Mercy. Before that, we'd never had enough time. We just really had to go in there and almost play like a gig. We'd do all the backing tracks and solos all in one go, and then we'd put the vocals on and then mix it. And we were usually sort of limited to about a 4 or 5 day time span. And just the first day is just spent getting used to it. And so, in this last one, we made sure we had enough times that we could do a bit of colour with the sound. Nothing too much, just a bit of percussion and acoustic guitars and things like that, and just spend a bit more time getting the sound right. And hopefully more so with this next one. But we don't want to go too over the top with it.
Do you think there is a distinct Australian style of blues? Can you put your finger on that?
I'm probably not the guy to ask. You know, Warren Fahey has written some notes for our live album, and he sort of says there is. I mean, I don't think we sound like an American band. I think there's no way you could mistake us for somebody like, the Fabulous Thunderbirds or something like that. But whether that's particularly Australian or that's because we sound like the way we do. I know some Australian bands sound very American. I think, I'm not putting them down for it. I think it's an achievement, not nothing to be put down for. But I look at a band like Rock Bottom James, and I think they sound very American. I think that's great. But I don't know if we do. If somebody said we did, I wouldn't be offended.
Oh.
Put it that way. But I'd like to think that what we put out is totally different. From the festivals, I've noticed the Australian bands probably go for the throat a bit more. The Americans take their time.
Yeah.
They stretch out a lot more, and sort of they're very relaxed. But because of Australian audiences, you've really got to get them in the first 5 minutes, or you're dead.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only difference I would probably pick up, and maybe some of the vocal stylings are a bit different.
Has there been any overseas interest in the band?
Yeah, well, we've sort of we've had records being taken overseas and being bought from overseas, but without actually having inked a deal over there or anything like that, it's been a bit difficult for us to sort of get any interest from sort of Europe as far as record companies go. But that might be because we haven't really tried. We sort of because we make a pretty good living here. It's been a bit difficult for us to make that leap. But certainly, if somebody showed some interest, we wouldn't be adverse to going and having a look.
Now, you mentioned there was a live album in the works. Tell us a little bit about that, where it was recorded, and what sort of material are we covering there?
Well, it was done at a place called The Healer up in Brisbane, in Fortitude Valley.
Yep.
Hence the name. It's going to be called Down in the Valley, which is also a name from one of our songs. And it's just an old church, basically, and it's been sort of... I personally think it's one of the best venues in Australia. It's right up there with the Continental in Melbourne, or which I think is now closed, but...
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and there's another one called the Governor Hindmarsh in Adelaide, and they're perfect music venues. They're just so well lit, and the sound systems are good, and everything is sort of tailored for the musicians and the listeners, which a lot of venues aren't. The band's chucked over in the corner underneath the TV screen between the pool table and the ladies' toilet. And that unfortunately is all too often the case. But the Healer is one of those venues where everybody who goes there can see the band no matter where they are, and they can hear the band, and it sounds good. So we chose that place to do it, because there's the recording system's already built in there anyway. Well, half of it is. We didn't have to bring much stuff in to do it, and it came out really well. And it didn't take long to mix. It was all kind of really all there anyway, and it came out quite well. Very, very sort of big sounding, and we're quite happy with it.
There's been a pretty healthy blues scene up there in Brisbane at the moment.
There is. There's some great acts up there. There's some of my favourite people are from up there, like Little C, and Mojo Webb. He's a great player.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that. I mean, the place is crawling with them. You get a support act up there, and you've really got to lift your game to sort of do as well as they do. But that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing at all.
Now, just for our listeners here, can you run through the current lineup of the band for us?
It's the lineup we had on the last from the last CD. At the moment, we got Al Britton on bass, and he's been the constant member with me since the beginning. And then we got a chap called Eben Hale on guitar and vocals, and Andrew Vanauskas on drums.
And what are the touring plans in the foreseeable future?
Well, we got a couple of weeks here in our home, which is sort of Sydney. We all live around Sydney, but we're here for a few weeks, about 4 weeks, I think, doing a few gigs around. And then we're off to do a Northwestern Australian run, which is a thing we do once a year around this time, which we're starting in Perth and finishing in Darwin. So that's quite a hefty run, that one. It's all hands on deck for that one. It's working every day, basically, every night, I mean, and travelling. So. And then after that, I think we've got a North Queensland run a few weeks after that.
Keeping busy. And what sort of time frame are we looking at for the live album?
Oh, very soon. It's all the artwork's done. It's just gone to manufacturing now, so we're looking at the first week of June, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Shane. Well, thank you for your time. Congratulations on fronting one of Australia's mightiest blues bands for over a decade now.
Thanks, John. Thanks for your interest, mate.
I hope there's many more years to come, and I hope we'll see you down in Melbourne real soon.
Okay, mate. Well, maybe we can get together when we... are you close to Melbourne, down there?
About 30 minutes out of town, yeah.
Yeah, by all means. Come and make yourself known.
That'd be great.
Okay, John.
Good on you, Shane.
Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.